Hi, my name is Iman Rayhania, and I'm 32 years old. I'm studying computer science. I came to UCI from community college at 2017. It was, I think, in 2019 that I had a stomach problem, and after a few times I went to the doctor, they thought that I have cancer. But it was not cancer, I had the stomach ulcer, but that quarter I had to drop all of my courses, and because I live alone here in US, it was very hard for me, like 3 months. I have a lot of pain that time, and I got better. And after that it was COVID. In COVID I lost my job. The company I was working, they did a bankruptcy, and after that I couldn't study anymore, and because I didn't have any money, and I couldn't pay for the rental for my car. I couldn't pay for my home, and I had to drop all of my courses and go to Tijuana and live there because the government was not helping me. I don't know why. I asked a lot and was not helping me. And I had to go there to sell my stuff to be able to live with the lower rent, and I couldn't study that time at all. And in Tijuana, I was the victim of assault, and after that I had to come to San Diego. In San Diego, I was after that assault, I came to San Diego, and I was in hospital for 5 days, and after that I became homeless for about a year. I was homeless in San Diego downtown. I was living in the street until I sent an email to Peter. He's like my brother. He's working with you guys, and he did a lot for me. He worked a lot, and he helped me to. Even he sent me the money for Uber, so I was able to come back here and live in UCI, and he helped me to get clothes. He helped me to get food. He helped me to register for my classes again, and he changed my life. If it was not because of you guys, right now, I don't know, maybe I would end up in downtown San Diego and I would die.
How would you define basic needs and basic needs insecurity? And what does this look like for college students?
Really what it is sort of those basic essentials that people need to have and live with to lead a dignified kind of life.
And for that, what we think about is we think about housing, we think about food, we think about money, we think about health, transportation, in this day and age, technology.
I think for our students, what basic needs insecurity looks like really is the stress of not knowing potentially, either where your next meal is going to come from or how you're going to be able to afford tuition and rent, or kind of just balancing and juggling all of these different responsibilities in addition to being a good student, right?
And so these issues would come to us. And so we recognize that, sometimes students and their families are in a really tough situation and they need some additional support. We've been dealing with this for many years, and I think pretty proud to say that the campus, I believe, led the way around addressing basic needs through our basic needs work that we've had.
Ever since 2000, I believe it's 13, 14, right? The UC system introduced questions that measure food insecurity in what we call the UQs, or the UC Undergraduate Experience Survey, we actually see that almost half of our students have experienced food insecurity at one point in their time at UCI in the previous year.
And in terms of housing, there's a discrepancy that goes to like 5% to students being unhoused to north of 10%. And I say roughly because it's very important to me that people understand that basic needs doesn't impact students equally.
Basic needs insecurities looks very differently for each student, right? So it really depends on the student's particular situation, their demographics, as well as their obstacles, their own lived experiences.
Basic needs insecurity has a demonstrated impact on mental, emotional, and physical well-being, which can have further impacts on a student's ability to function socially, professionally, and academically.
You know, a lot of times food insecurity and basic needs insecurity is a really personal thing for a lot of students, and there's a lot of stigma that's associated with it. A stigma that is associated with seeking support or knowing when to seek support, or also knowing that there are resources available for students, and sometimes students, you know, not wanting to tap into those or not feeling supported in tapping into those resources.
You know, a lot of people, they have this misconception that college students have it made. And when you go to college, like you're 18, like you're an adult now, like people expect you to have everything figured out, that you got to know like what to do.
We tend to come from a low income background, or we are first generation. And that means that a lot of us don't have our parents helping us.
A lot of people like to blame students as if they're being irresponsible, but most folks don't understand that our financial aid is at a 4-decade purchasing power low. The cost of living is at historic highs, and the cost of inflation is at historic highs, while wages that students can earn and other people have not kept up with any of those things.
Over the last 18 years, the total cost of attendance for the university has more than doubled.
When I was in school, it was much more affordable. And so, you know, I could work over the summer and get some money to help me through school. And students are just trying to work to survive.
I had to move out and work and go to school at the same time. And it was really hard to be able to meet rent and make my car payments and still have enough money to provide for myself.
Within the past decade, the increasing visibility of basic needs insecurity has accelerated the urgency for student advocates, university leaders, and policymakers to research this issue and work towards alleviating it. Today, the UC's efforts are viewed as a national model for improving basic needs security in higher education. Basic needs advocacy is work that requires research, resources, and resilience. While UC Irvine was founded in 1965, basic needs insecurity was an issue that was not in major discussion until this past decade.
I actually started working at UC Irvine in 2010. And at that point in time, I was the only social worker on campus. Food insecurity was kind of starting to come into the forefront. I almost want to say 2012, 2013 is when I really took notice.
Considering how, when you were like one of the only social workers at the time at UCI, and the fact that this was just a new emerging problem, like what was it like trying to help students out at that time?
Oh, it was limited. You had to get creative. The research there was hardly any back then. It wasn't a conversation that people were having, and it's nothing like it is right now. It's so robust at UCI right now.
10 out of the 10 UC campuses have established on-site basic needs centers that provide access to food, emergency housing, and support services. While students are able to reap the benefits of these accomplishments today, it is essential to acknowledge the history of this work, as well as recognize the people who led and fueled the basic needs movements on these campuses.
Back then, the director of SOAR, Dr. Graciela Fernandez, was a good friend of mine. And we would talk about the students who were entering her space at SOAR and who were being referred to my office as clients, right? And that's when the conversation started for me at UCI and talking to another staff member. And we were going, this is a problem.
When I had the pleasure of serving as the retention coordinator for the SOAR Center, the director back then, Dr. Graciela Fernandez, essentially had a discussion with me about wanting to hey, there were discussions about starting a food pantry in the past. Do you want to help take on this with a couple of other folks? And I was like, yeah, let's do it.
So I'm really honored to have been part of the food security movement at UCI. Back then we were, there were some fellows who basically advocated for the opening of a pantry, and we had one-time funding from UCOP.
Our goal was to use the funds, even though it's only $2,500 that we got from the UC Office of the President back then, is to really open up mock food pantry in the SOAR Center. And the goal is to kind of see launching it as a mock pilot, see if there's really a need to do some data collections and understand the impact and all that. When we did the mock food pantry opening, during that week, we launched a whole week long of events, in partnership with the SOAR Center, in partnership with the Muslim student unions, and a lot of the volunteers came together. We wanted to prove that there is a need for a resource like this. We had a petition. It's do you support, UC Irvine's kind of not just exploring, but building a food pantry in the long run? And within a week, we gathered more than 1,000 signatures.
This led into basically the summer of 2015, Office of the President announcing that they were going to give each UC campus a $75,000 seed grant to either start food security efforts on campus, such as building a campus pantry, or for those campuses that already had something going on, for them to basically make it better. I initially started as what used to be called the Food Access and Security Coordinator. So that was the initial role that was established in 2015. This was before we had anything, so it was really to start the efforts to create the first campus pantry. We ran the pantry for the first 2 initial years. We were at the Source Center, right? It was a great time, but it was a very small little pantry.
When I was there, the pantry was just it occupied kind of 2 closet spaces in SOAR.
The closet space was really small, that there's only 1 or 2 people who could physically be in there.
So we didn't have enough storage space, right? It was not enough space to run the operation at the magnitude that it needed to be run to really serve the need. In that year, I was fortunate to work with very passionate student leaders who were thinking about the long-term funding issues, right? And they were very motivated to run a student fee referendum,
which at the time would increase $3 in tuition per student per quarter, and that funding would go towards establishing a resource center around food insecurity and basic needs insecurity. The food pantry is great. Giving students the opportunity to pick up food, like a shopping experience on campus, that's an amazing resource to have. But then again, it's okay, I get food this week, what am I doing next week? And really viewing it from a holistic perspective of how do we support students in all aspects of their basic needs, not just food, but also housing, and also equipping them with the skills and the resources to be able to, better sustain themselves.
So the referendum really came about because of the fact that we wanted this food pantry to not only just be a pantry, but really become a hub.
They were able to pass a referendum with an 85% approval of those who voted, which it's unheard numbers, right? I think for me that what showed is how many students were being affected by food insecurity.
And the conversation evolved in that sense, and that administrators bought in, they supported it, and they realized the community impact it was having on our students.
The space initially for the pantry was really, the SOAR Center and a closet in the SOAR Center. And Andrea working off of a couch or any place she could find to help try to support students. I mean, at that time, we were building the Mesa Court Towers. And in order to build the towers, we needed a temporary food facility. The trailers in Lot 5 were used as that temporary food facility. Well, when the towers were completed, those trailers in lot 5 were slated to be demolished. But I thought there was an opportunity here to be able to use that facility to operate the Fresh Basic Needs Hub.
In 2016, we're giving the keys to the space, and amazingly, right, it was kind of like a space that was being vacated. So we got a chance to really re-envision how the space would look like. We got to, you know, get new furniture and really adapt it to the operation of the Fresh Basic Needs Hub. And then soon after that, right, in fall of 2017, we opened our doors. We had like 500 students show up to our grand opening. LA Times was in here, right? It was like such a beautiful moment of celebration and accomplishment.
You know, it's like one of those feelings where it's like you're so proud to be able to be part of that with the folks that are so passionate about the same issue.
When we had passed the student referenda and we knew that we were gonna be able to expand the campus pantry into a basic needs center, for me it was very important that our student leaders would continue to make the decisions. We initially we ran a student contest where any student that was either visiting the pantry or was involved with the pantry could submit a name for it. The winning submission, right, was Fresh. But if you notice, right, in all of our branded materials, Fresh is spelled with capital letters, and that's because it's actually an acronym. So the student who submitted this, right, had said Fresh stands for Food Resources Empowering Students with Hope. We felt that Fresh was actually such a cool acronym, right, because then it spoke also to the work we were trying to do in our food resources, as well as having this kind of acronym, right, that really spoke about the empowerment piece, right, how we are empowering students to be able to meet their needs and not have to worry so much about the socioeconomic challenges that they may face.
So Fresh Basic Needs Hub is a all-encompassing basic needs center. We cover everything from CalFresh enrollment to life skills workshops, pantry services, transportation support, grocery support. We're able to support students in a wide range of basic needs.
We're a dynamic center. There's over 10 signature programs and services that we run, as well as opportunities to get involved, right? So we run volunteering opportunities, right? We work with many community organizations. So we like to say, right, we're a space that is dedicated to providing, right, a safe and welcoming environment to our students, to meet them where they're at, to connect them to the right resources, right, and to help them overcome financial or economic crisis.
Fresh currently has 3 major student staff powered services. Our operations team supports our in-person services, like the facilitation of the food pantry. The team works on intaking deliveries, picking up grocery rescue from local stores, and ensuring exceptional customer service. Currently, food from the pantry comes from a variety of places, such as Second Harvest Food Bank, Tanaka Farms, Cisco, local grocery stores, and the Orange County Food Bank.
What's going on right now is that we just received a beautiful delivery from our local producer, Tanaka Farms, which we give out to the students here. So we're just going to load it up into the cold box here. That way we'll be able to distribute it for the rest of the week.
Nice.
So Grocery Rescue is Fresh partnering up with local grocery stores. A couple of us are sent out to these stores. We drive and we pick up the donations that the stores have for us. And we bring them here. A lot of the times we have amazing stuff to sort, so we put them up front when we're done sorting them, but what is not good, we compost, recycle, landfill.
At the end of the day, our job as operations is to make sure the food pantry is running.
Yeah, we come here pretty much like every week, every other week, and it's amazing because I'm vegan and I have a lot of dietary restrictions, so like days like today where I can get a ton of stuff that actually like I can eat, like
fresh vegetables.
Like this vegan chocolate cake.
Wow!
I just turned 30 this weekend.
Happy
so
birthday!
I'm gonna have an actual birthday cake.
Yes!
Yeah.
Beautiful!
And on days like this, it's just like, oh my god, there's fresh vegetables that are not $9.
Yeah.
So like, this is phenomenal. And as a vegan, plant-forward household, like, yeah, this is a great resource for students.
Our CalFresh team works to provide awareness of and assistance for navigating the federally funded program, CalFresh. CalFresh provides monthly benefits for purchasing food at grocery stores and farmers markets. Students who meet specific eligibility requirements can apply for CalFresh, but while 2 in 5 college students in California are eligible, they may not even realize they can apply for it. Additionally, the application process can be confusing and difficult, which may discourage students from using this resource.
When I first came in, I didn't know that CalFresh was a resource, and I think even when I did know that CalFresh was a resource, and even given my involvement with the food pantry at the time, I was really hesitant to accept that. I think part of it was the stigma associated with it and kind of me not feeling comfortable. Another thing, I was always curious about if this is a government thing, what does that mean? How does that show up on my record or not? Or do I have to pay this back? So I had a lot of questions surrounding that. And I think my personal, journey through that only demonstrates, the challenges that it takes for other students to be able to accept such a resource.
Our CalFresh team works to make this program easier to understand, encourage students to apply, and support them through their application process. The team conducts CalFresh application assistance through one-on-one appointment settings or through answering inquiries asked through email. The team also raises awareness about CalFresh through social media content, hosting outreach events like CalFresh enrollment parties, and through informational booths on campus.
So as a CalFresh advocate, I guide people through CalFresh applications, and besides that, we also help with other applications within CalFresh, such as SAR 7 recertification. It's just us being a good support that people can rely on as someone who is very nervous when doing applications on my own, especially ones connected to the government. There's always that fear if I'm doing something wrong, is anything going to get pushed back?
I last quarter applied for CalFresh myself. Honestly, I found it really challenging to be maneuvering this whole government system by myself. My application went in and I didn't hear back, unfortunately, for about a month. So I checked in multiple times with my caseworker, could never get in contact with them. On the very last day, it was thankfully accepted. But until then, I was in this limbo of what should I do? And I actually encountered Fresh at one of their enrollment fairs at the flagpoles. And I was asking one of the supervisors, hey, what can I do? My application I submitted by myself, but the county is ignoring me. And thankfully, they actually let me get in touch with actual workers who were there because the county social workers were there on that day. So yeah, Fresh helped me even before I knew Fresh could help me.
A recently launched service is our peer financial wellness consultations, which are led by our basic needs peer educators. Peer eds provide one-on-one financial wellness consultations in which they work with students to help them better understand their current financial status and help them develop financial goals. They also produce really cool educational social media content.
Our peer educators here at the Fresh Hub do a great job of educating students on financial wellness topics such as credit, budgeting, saving for short and long term.
One time I had a student at an outreach event talk to me about how she was really struggling, and eventually we kept talking and she opened up to me that she lives in her car. And it was a really tough conversation because it was man, I cannot imagine having to work, live in your car, and try to go to school. That is just a whole other level of trying to do school.
Students' experiences with basic needs insecurity are unique. To provide more personalized support for students, Fresh also offers one-on-one consultations led by our 2 on-site campus social workers.
Hi, I'm Peter Thatch, Basic Needs Campus Social Worker here at the Fresh Hub. I offer basic needs consultations for students experiencing financial crisis and other stressors. What I love most about our service is that it provides students with immediate supports regardless of their situation, whether it's just basic food insecurity or it might be a financial crisis type situation where they're unable to pay rent or other basic other living expenses. I'm also able to connect them to our crisis grant or troubleshoot with financial aid to provide supports for students, and also to connect them with immediate supports, whether it be the pantry, grocery cards, Lyft vouchers. There's so many supports available here at the Fresh Hub, and sometimes students, it's their first time kind of finding out what that is. So I love just being able to provide that support, immediate guidance, and just reassurance that their needs will be met here on campus.
Hi, my name is Christy Molino. I'm a campus social worker in charge of our rapid rehousing programs. One of the programs that we offer to students is called Basic Needs Sponsored Housing. What that is when students are experiencing homelessness, they're able to move into an on-campus unit free of charge for 30 days, receive a welcome kit when they move in that includes bedding supplies, linens, cooking supplies, cleaning supplies, anything that you would need, like if you were moving into an apartment. We place them in these units, and then they work with a campus social worker with intensive case management to move them into permanent housing. One thing that I love about our service is that it gives students hope. Students shouldn't have to think about where they're going to sleep at night. And with this program, they're able to have secure housing while we work with them to get permanent placement, and they're able to focus on what they're here for, academics and having fun.
My experience with Fresh was overall really positive. Everyone that worked there, I never felt judged. It was always very welcoming. Normally with things like that, you feel kind of insecure about getting that help. So going there and having friendly students or friendly workers talk to you and help you gather your items was really kind of encouraging to seek out that help.
Fresh is a great place, and it's a fantastic place to work at because when you wake up in the morning, you don't feel like you're dragged to go to work, but you feel like you're doing something good and you're providing a service to other people in need.
Fresh is only as strong as the people that help run the day-to-day. When we hire students and staff for this work, we're very particular about letting them know, like it's always busy here and it's hard work many times, and it's feeling physically exhausted at the end of the day, feeling sometimes emotionally exhausted at the end of the day, because as much as we're here, we also get to sometimes hear the very difficult experiences that our students are facing. It really, like they say, it takes a village to do transformational work.
From its humble beginnings in a closet space in the SOAR Center to its grand transition into a fully functioning facility in 2017, the Fresh Basic Needs Hub has been constantly finding its footing as it continues to expand.
I think initially in the beginning stages, there were certainly some growing pains. And I think there was also a paradigm shift in the way that we needed to think about basic needs and supporting our students. For many of us who've been doing this work for a very long time, I think there's a pride factor in knowing that we're doing everything that we can, providing housing, providing social, emotional support, recreation services, things across the board. But to think that maybe students are having issues that are not being covered by those services, sometimes is a gut check. You're like, oh gosh, I thought we were doing everything we can for students. And we certainly are doing everything that we can. But there are some challenges that are outside of our control.
And then the pandemic hit and we were all like, okay, are we gonna stay here? What's going on?
I think it just made us realize more that how vulnerable our student population is.
We were discovered, I think, a lot during the pandemic.
At the time, Fresh was one of the very few facilities that was still open on campus. A lot of people had went back to their hometown or wherever their living situation was, but there was still an X amount of students that still needed the assistance out here.
We had to adapt our operations significantly, Almost everything had to go remote except for our pantry food distribution. We had to pull back to only do one distribution per week or two distributions per week, And also, of course, being mindful that so many of our students had gone back home.
I remember I received a text from Andrea saying we're going online. But back then it was no one was doing CalFresh application services online. I'm very happy to say that we were still able to provide CalFresh services online. We did have to, adjust the format where the student would fill out the application themselves and they would share their screen with us so we can our staff could like guide them through the application.
The past few years, I think COVID, as hard as it has been to go through so many adaptations, also allowed some space for innovation, right? And allowed some space for really thinking more deeply about how do we make our resources more accessible. So we added a grocery cart support program, we added short-term transportation support. We finally were also able to launch our basic needs sponsor housing or emergency housing for students who face homelessness. And so the past 2 years have been also a time of like just continued growth.
We've changed so much in the past few years. It's kind of insane. And it's been a little hard to keep track of. I feel like it's a very dynamic workplace working at Fresh, just because we've had to adjust so much.
In 2017, when we opened our doors, just to give you an idea, right, our operating budget was about $400K for the entire year. We opened with 10 student staff and myself. Fast forward now, right, our operating budget is almost $3 million. There is 9 of us who work here full time. We have 2 social workers as well as a basic needs counselor. And as I mentioned, over 40 plus student staff, right, that are paid to do this work. And we continue to grow, right, and continue to increase the capacity because unfortunately, right, basic needs insecurities affect so many of our students on campus. We need to continue basically adapting, right, to be able to serve that need.
Currently operating in its 5th year, Fresh is working towards another milestone of moving to a new space.
As much as we love our current location, right, and we've grown to love being at the end of a parking lot, this space has always been temporary for us, right, because it's not an actual building. And so, you know, it's time for us to move and to go into a permanent building that hopefully will become our permanent home for the years to come. Our goal is to always make sure that the moment a student walks through our doors that they feel, right, like that it's just a feeling that they're welcome here and that they should be here and that they deserve to be here.
I know it can get embarrassing to seek out help and to try and get those resources, but at the end of the day, you learn that you're not alone.
My existence here and the reason that I can't have dream to go to grad school, I'm thinking to go to grad school, all of this is because of you guys. If you guys were not doing what you are doing now, I believe many students would end up having another life.
I feel like Fresh is really kind of like a template for other schools. Getting to kind of network and being able to go to like conferences with other UCs or CSUs, just kind of seeing what they're doing in the basic needs work. I feel like Fresh really is a template for them, kind of like for other schools to help kind of grow and expand their own centers.
When we created that space, that was the first ever, I think, not only in the UC system, but in the country. And we had coverage, you know, in the LA Times and all the major news articles. And we use this opportunity to brag that this became now the template nationally for how do you run a basic needs hub. You know, the hope here is that like we don't have to have students endure some of these challenges and stresses, but if they do, then we have this service that's, you know, available to them.
I always think about the student who is right now facing hunger, right? The student who right now is worried about where they're going to sleep tonight. And so the more awareness that we can raise about not just the space, but the resources that we offer, right, the better we are going to be. So I really see it as a community effort. This work, it's exciting. It's sometimes I call it bittersweet because we are dealing with very complex life situations. And so together we try to envision a world where there is enough for everyone and that no one has to go without.
We all have a basic need to be together under the sun. There is no other place for us to be. We must learn to live with another. There's too much for one to bear.